I'm very humbled to stand here and be honored in this way. Well, first of all, it's great to be back in New Orleans. The first time I was here when I was drafted into the military in the First World War.
Sure, John.
I get quite upset when some people don't get it, but it was the Second World War. Anyway, I was here. I was going to radio school in Gulfport, Mississippi, and so when VE Day, Victory in Europe, happened, I was here in New Orleans. It was quite a celebration, I must tell you. I don't remember much about it anymore, but anyway, we have very strong ties with New Orleans because within days after Hurricane Katrina, we were able, with our friends in Wisconsin, to put together a busload of food, 10,000 pounds of potatoes included in the food, medical supplies and other supplies, and the volunteers brought the bus to areas in South Mississippi and Louisiana, to areas that hadn't received any relief at that time. And we were much ahead and much more effective than FEMA was, because they didn't come around for days and weeks sometimes. So it was a time that we had a solidarity with the Ninth Ward people, St. Bernard Parish, the New Orleans Food and Farm Network, the Mississippi Association of Cooperatives, St. Augustine Church, and many other allies, some of who might be here now. So it was a great time. And a year later, we had our annual meeting and brought a semi-load of tractors, and in Project Tractor number 1, and Joel Greeno, stand up. That was Joel's brainchild, because he talked with people that were struggling here, black farmers who said, oh, if I only had me a little tractor, I wouldn't have to hoe all these long rows. So that was the first load. We were able to get 5 tractors, machinery. A few weeks later, another load of 5 tractors. That was number 2. And 5 tractors and some more machinery. And then 2 weeks ago, we were finally able to get load number 3 to Point Coupé Cooperative in Louisiana. And so that was our solidarity with the people in this area and with other people. So, so this is an example of food sovereignty, solidarity with our brothers and sisters here, all over in the rest of the United States and in the world. Some of the lessons that I've used were from my indigenous friends where I live and in the US and other parts of the world, but especially I learned long ago that the way you looked at Mother Earth was to, if you had to use fuel, for which they did and which I do, for warmth and other cooking or whatever else, and you had to cut a live tree, you apologized to Mother Earth for cutting off her limbs. And if you had to dig into the earth, for any reason, you apologized to Mother Earth for breaking her skin. And then you try to repair it. And that was a lesson that I think of every time I manage my forest and cut wood. And it's just very important. And that's an example, again, of food sovereignty, respect for Mother Earth. So, I am a peasant farmer, unfortunately, Steve took my honor away by saying that yesterday. But anyway, I look on myself as a peasant farmer because even the big industrial farms are now saying, well, we're family farmers, so even though that's in our name, we're not going to change it. But we have to be clear of who we are, because the inspiration I've gotten from peasant farmers around the world makes me very proud to say that. So it's something else that we need to keep in mind. Well, Monsanto, of course, now is even environmentally conscious. They're green, so we're going to run out of words pretty soon to define ourselves. So, and another thing that is interesting, a friend of mine wrote a book on rights. Do you know that man?
I think I met him once.
Oh.
Another old guy.
His name is Bruce Durneen, but anyway, that's another interesting concept, that rights don't mean anything until we enforce them. And so it's difficult to use that word after reading that book. I've got 5 pages of notes, but it would take me 2 days to say all I want to say about all the good people I've met and the things that have happened. But one thing that was so important was setting up our board with Ruth and the others. We made a determined effort to include at least 40% urban people on our executive board, or not executive board, but on our governing board. And this is one of the best things we ever could have done, because you people and urban people care many times, understand better the value of family farms, of urban agriculture and food, while farmers where I live and throughout the United States are so beaten down by industrial garbage and propaganda, they don't even know what we're talking about. So it's very difficult to find farmers that can stand up anymore, because they've had their dignity taken away from them by low prices that are unnecessary. So it's important that we are here together with urban people, with urban gardeners. One of the important things that I learned over 40 years ago, after being involved in the civil rights in the South, in the state of Mississippi, we began a cultural exchange. And during that time, I spent a lot of time working with black farmers. And what I saw, land being taken away all through the years in our constant contacts. And I would come home and I'd say to our farmers, work with them, try to help them. If we don't stand together, because within 2 years after what I saw there, everything that was happening to black farmers happened to my neighbors and to me. It was always get the poor people and the people of another culture first, and divide and conquer. And it was a struggle, but I met some of the most dynamic people at that time. And I think I sometimes know more roads in Mississippi than I do in Wisconsin. But it was a tremendous learning process. I watched farmers die of a broken heart, black farmers from Mountain Bayou, Mississippi. And then I learned, with all the discrimination, that the whole civil rights movement wasn't for black people. It was for people. It was for all of us. Some of our activities include the International Day of Action, which was April 17th. And we take our cows, they're human cows, a herd of cows down to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and protest what happens in their decisions to lower prices and determine prices that are reflected all over the world within almost minutes. And it's very exciting because the police are very protective. They come and They make sure that we have a good place to go. In other words, they think we're going to cause a riot. And after the cows mingle around, and thanks to the cow suits, and sometimes they put up fences to keep us off the streets, and so it's very appropriate to have our cows in the pen. But it's a very good action, and we do this almost every year. But the other thing that happened just very recently, at the World Dairy Expo, we organized an award ceremony, and we brought our cows, and we gave awards, and to the farm with the biggest manure lagoon. We gave an award to the farm with the biggest pile of manure, in other words, cow shit. We gave an award to the industrial farm that took the most corporate dollars. And John Peck was out there, and he opened the envelope, and he said, "And the winner is," and it was the cows mooed, and the people cheered, and so it was a great event. So my point is, you have to have fun when you're doing these things, and it works. Much of the great things have been said by my friend, brother here, because we were in the same conference in Senegal a few years ago, and it was a great event. So I don't need to go into all the great things he said. I've stayed on, well, there's too much to get into here. We have a website that you can look at. We have a booth with other information. But let me finish by saying, when I was spending time in Mississippi in the last 40 years, working with people of all ages, it was a horrible thing to see women in their 40s and 50s and men dying while their grandmothers were still alive and their mothers. And guess what? These women that were dying were eating processed food, and their mothers and grandmothers were eating out of the garden, just like my grandmother and my mother, who lived in their 90s. And we're talking about people, this generation in the United States are going to die before their grandparents or mothers and fathers. And that's exactly what I saw there. Was horrifying, and for quite some time. So, to conclude, how important it is to live on the principles of food sovereignty. Justice in the food system is just us, all of us. So, and our strength is in our diversity. And going into Asia, Africa, Central and South America, and to learn the lessons from all of my indigenous friends that I've got to know, it has been tremendous in shaping our lives in our direction of Family Farm Defenders as far as food sovereignty. And I want to say that some of us are inspired by Gandhi. He said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." Thank you.